Hello everybody, happy Monday, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. So if you are here on a Monday, then you are part of a very special club where we tell ghost stories. Well, I tell ghost stories that you guys send me. Thank you so much for sending them to me. And I create a makeup look, and it's usually like a theme of like what kind of ghost I am. And today I am doing more of a vampire look. So something a little bit more vampy. But yeah, so let's get into it today. Oh, by the way, you guys absolutely loved last week's story about Letitia, that girl. If you haven't seen it, go back and see it. It is one of the creepiest stories and pictures I think I've ever seen. If you don't mind being creeped out, go and have a look. Honestly, it's amazing. Okay, so our first story today is called Nightmare Dream. Ooh. About a year ago, I was with my friend at her house near the sea, just relaxing and painting. We arrived pretty late at night and I just went to bed maybe 30 minutes after we arrived there. I immediately fell asleep. I had a nightmare all night about a skinny, weird-looking man who was standing near the pool. And he looked furious. At one point in my dream, that man saw me watching him and he attacked me and tried to strangle me. He told me he was the king of Montenegro, the country we live in. I woke up terrified and made myself coffee and decided to paint that nightmare man. When my friend woke up, she asked me what is going on. At that moment, I was finishing painting his head only, and I told her about my dream. She took a deep breath and then showed me a photo of a man who previously owned her house and who was in jail for domestic violence. That was 95% the same man I saw in my nightmare. I never heard of or saw this man before. She said that man is still in jail, so don't show this picture. And she sent me a picture of a man and it literally looked, oh, it's so creepy. It looks like the painting. That's so terrifying. Thank you for that story. You're an amazing artist, by the way. Creepy, but amazing. Okay, let's move on to our next story. This one doesn't have a title. We'll call it Story 2. It says, "Hi Robert, first of all, I'd like to say I absolutely love your channel. Thank you so much. So in my lifetime, I've had some seriously scary moments and a whole lot of stories. I'll be sending some more, but for the first story, I will start off in my childhood. I seem to have always been sensitive to all kinds of what you would call paranormal activity. Like for as long as I can remember, I have senses, seen or came in contact with something. So I was 11 years old and my best friend came to stay the night. And we were sharing creepy stories, and we were convinced our neighbor was a full-blown witch. She was an elderly lady, a big hoarder, and her house was beyond creepy. She would have random types of animals in pens in the backyard that would just disappear from one day to the next. Sacrificing chickens, I guess. My dad had just bought me a giant life-size freaking clown. For some reason, my family would buy me clowns. Little ones, big ones, pictures and masks to hang on my wall. Anywho, I was telling my friend about how I would see them move at night and I hated it. She thought it was funny, but I was serious. So we went about our sleepover and I fell asleep before her. She wakes me up around midnight crying and I ask her what was wrong. She points at the clown I was just talking about that had been placed in the corner on the other side of the room and is now sitting next to my bed on my side and now has teeth instead of a creepy smile. Like it wasn't a real clown, it was still stuffed and the teeth were felt, but the point is it moved on its own and now has teeth. So I picked it up and shoved it in a closet and continued to put everything I could in front of a closet. So me and her eventually fall back asleep, and when we wake up the next day, she starts telling me about her dream. And I started getting chills and shaking. We had the same dream. Not lying or exaggerating, we both had a dream of a witch next door chasing us while we were dressing in Halloween costumes. I was so shook. And yes, the other clowns would continue to move around at night. And some that had painted tears on them, I would see real, wet tears drip down off their face and hit the floor. Messed me up, but I'm not scared of clowns, surprisingly. Two things about that story. I think we all had one neighbor who was like the witch or the mean guy or the hoarder who has a really like weird, messy house. I used to have this poster in my room, right? And it was a show called Button Moon back in the day. And I would swear, and it was probably just because it was dark and it was evening, I would swear I would see the things on the poster moving as a child. But that is terrifying. Clowns, I would be so scared of clowns if that was the case, or just toys in general if that happened to me. Thank you so much for that story. That was creepy and horrible. Our next story is called Sorry Mum. Oh, so this one isn't really scary, but it scared me enough. Anyway, that's fine. Anything else, you know, whatever, send me whatever. So this was about 2 years ago, when I was still in high school and living at home. I had woken up one morning before school because I felt something stroking my hair. I really didn't think much of it because I could feel a weight behind me. I knew it was my mum, since sometimes she came up to wake me up in the morning. She'd be too tired and get in my bed and go back to sleep. Absolutely. Anyway, back to this stroking hair situation. I then heard a voice say something like, "Hey, sweetie," but it kind of unnerved me, because it really didn't sound like my mum, but it still sounded like a mum, like a very motherly voice, but not my mother's voice. So I turned around, like what the heck, and noticed my mum was still asleep right next to me. But she immediately woke up when she felt me turn around, so she kind of smiled at me and said good morning. But I was still super confused at the fact that something had talked to me and stroked my hair, but I could clearly see that my mum had just woken up. So I did what any gracious daughter would do, and I screamed about 5 centimeters away from her face. You can imagine my poor mother's confusion, but we kind of still laughed about it, and I had to keep apologizing, obviously, because I screamed at her at like 6 a.m. But I even asked her if she had said anything or touched me at all, and she said no. So still, to this day, I don't know what that was, but I also can't help but crack up at the entire situation. I'm just glad I haven't been put up for adoption. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, that's your poor mum. That's creepy though. That is so creepy. Something just saying like, hi. Our next story is called Godfather and Fireworks. Hi, thank you for taking the time to read. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for sending. My name is Victoria and I have 2 stories I would like to share. The first includes what my parents believe the ghost of my godfather, and the second is a weird picture I took on the 4th of July. I was around 5 or 6 at the time, and my mum was giving me a bath. She filled the bath and put me in it and said she'll be back because she had to do something for my dad. She went upstairs with my dad and left me in the bathroom downstairs with the door open. I was playing in the bath, acting like I was swimming and playing with the bubbles, and after a while, it feels like someone is watching me. So I turn around, assuming it's my mum getting back to watch me, but when I turn around, in the doorway is a white figure. I keep my eyes on it as I'm stunned and slowly shift my eyes down to the ground. I noticed that it wasn't on the ground, but it was levitating. I looked back up to where its face would be and screamed. My mum and dad came running down the stairs and it disappeared. My parents asked me what happened, and through my sobs I told them what I saw. My mum looked at my dad and asked me how tall the figure was. I said it was almost touching the top door frame. My parents were convinced that it was my godfather who died in a car crash a month prior, and said that it was nothing to be scared of and he was just checking in on me. I am now 17 and haven't seen him again. But when I'm alone, I hear walking upstairs and feel like someone is watching. Back in 2011, my family and I went to watch fireworks for the 4th of July. My mother wasn't with us, so she wanted me to take pictures for her. I took a few pictures for her, and when we were leaving, I was looking over them and saw something that scared me for years. I looked back at the picture and it looked like there was a person right next to the firework, which would be about 100 to 200 feet in the sky. And it just didn't make sense to me. I showed my family in the car and my mum when I got home, and they all said it was nothing. But it obviously isn't nothing, but they might have not wanted me to overreact and not sleep. I'm going to attach the picture. Please, if anyone can let me know what it is, do. I still don't know what it could be and would love to know. Thank you for reading, and sorry it's long. I thought it would be shorter, but I love your channel and hope I could give you a little spook from my life. It's not long at all. Thank you so much. I can't figure out what that is. It has like a human shape, right? But I don't know. What? Oh my god, if anyone has any ideas, leave them below. That's so strange. Thank you so much for sending that over. That is one of the strangest things I've seen. That's incredible. This one is called My Not So Spooky Roommate. So my freshman year of college, I went to an older university in Connecticut, where there were definitely rumours of buildings being haunted. I lived in an older dorm with a common area, connecting 2 bedrooms with 5 girls living in the suite. There were 3 girls, including myself, in my room, and 2 girls in the other. Here's a view from my top bunk, just to show you how small the rooms were. I blurred my roommate's face for privacy. Anyway, my roommates were all social butterflies, but me being a chemistry major, I spent my free time decompressing as much as I could. About halfway through my first semester, the first day, I was completely alone in the suite. I felt the overwhelming, nervous energy coming from my suite mate's room. I was a stupid girl in a horror movie that afternoon and decided to go and check it out. The energy got more intense once I got into the common area, and the air felt like static in my suite mate's room. I called out to the room and said, "I know you're here and I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just here to go to school. I hope we can live together in peace." As I finished speaking, the energy disappeared. A few weeks went by and I started noticing little things being moved on my bunk bed or on my desk. Not enough where my roommates would notice, but enough that I would stop and stare, thinking if that's how I left it or not. Like a pen being rotated or a cup spun round. I played it off as me being paranoid and tried not to think about it. A few weeks after things started moving at night, I would see little white lights dance across my ceiling. I tried so hard to convince myself it was nothing, but we had blackout curtains in the windows and our windows looked into the quad, so it wasn't like it was headlights from a car or something. It freaked me out the first few times it happened, but eventually I realised it was the spirit who was next door and just started to talk to her. Now this sounds nuts, but most nights it was just me in the room, as both my roommates spent the majority of their nights at their boyfriend's house. She only ever came to visit on nights I was alone and could talk to her. I would just talk to the ceiling about my day, the lights would dance in response. It's been 8 years since I lived there and I still think about her often. She was lovely company to have while I was 3 hours away from home. That's so cute. That's really cute and like really creepy at the same time, but really cute. I think if I was to like feel like a presence in another room, my initial response wouldn't be like, you know, I'm not gonna hurt you. It'll be more like, please don't hurt me, you know? That's some good quick thinking you did there. This one's called My Dad ×2. So, I have a horrible memory, and I don't know how old I was when it happened. Me and my parents were coming home from something, I think a party, and they were really tired, so we went straight to bed. I had some money in my hands that my family members gave to me, and I wanted to put in my piggy bank, but my mum said to do it in the morning when I wake up. She was really tired, so I just waited until they fell asleep to do it. The way the room was set up made it to where our feet were facing the closet where my piggy bank was. It wasn't a big room, so we were pretty close to the closet, so I got up quietly to put my money in a piggy bank. As I turn around to go back to bed, someone comes up from under the bed. It looked exactly like my dad. But how can it be him when he was sleeping right there? He kept telling me, "Give me a kiss, then you can go back to sleep." By the way, I'm from Hawaii, so kisses are meant as greetings or something normal like that. Of course, I refused because I was scared shitless. But after a while, my parents woke up and all my mum said was, "Give him a kiss and let's go back to sleep." So I kissed his cheek and went back to bed. I don't know what happened after that. It was one of those experiences where it felt real, but it could have been a dream. I don't know, I hope you liked my story. I know it's as interesting as the other ones you get sent, but thanks anyway. That was interesting. That's creepy. That's really, really creepy because it's something, again, I say this a lot, something like imitating your dad or imitating a loved one or imitating a family member. I find really creepy, almost like a twisted version of your family member. Hi, I suddenly have concealer on. Okay. This one's called Sometimes I See a Man Standing in My Room. My name is Emma and I'm going to tell you about one ghost I think has been by my side since I was 5. That's too long for a ghost to be following you around. Disclaimer. 1. I am Swedish, so if my grammar is bad or doesn't make sense, that's why. 2. The video is in Swedish, but I have translated it for you. Perfect. It all started when I was 5 and we moved into our house. It was built by my great-grandfather and nothing was here before the house. It was just empty grounds. I quickly became aware something or someone was with me when I walked around the house. The worst experiences, however, was at night. Every night I would fall asleep and later wake up at 3 a.m, of course, witching hour. I was frightened as I am very scared of the dark, but one night I started seeing a figure standing in front of my door. It was a tall figure and it was looking right at me. It never came closer than that, but it still scared the crap out of me. I always forced myself to fall back asleep, but one night I had built up the courage to run through the figure, out my room and into my parents' room. The figure was standing at the foot of their bed, like it followed every step I took. This was not sleep paralysis, I could move. While this happened, in the other room, my brother's punching bag sometimes started swinging violently. So like a real scary movie, they decided I would take my brother's room and he would sleep in mine. I had this room for a really long time, but it wasn't until I was 14 or 15 that it started to get really scary. One time, I was sitting by my desk with my back against the room. I had my hair up in a ponytail, and then all of a sudden, the hair in my neck stood up. Then, a second later, I felt my ponytail being dropped, like something was holding it up. I was hoping it was my older brother who was messing with me, but when I turned around, there was nobody there. Shortly after, for about a 3-week period, I woke up at 3 a.m. every night. It didn't matter when I went to bed, I always woke up at that exact time and felt like I bolted out of bed. I remember that when I woke up at 8 a.m, I felt so relieved, but then I saw my feet and hands. I had dry blood on the soles and my palms. There was no blood in my bed, not on the floor, and there was no cut later when I washed the blood off. This really made me feel nauseous. I told my mum, and she let one of her medium friends go in my room. She stood there for a moment, and I swear both me and my mum froze when she said, "There's something really bad in here." I knew that I didn't want to be in that room anymore. Fortunately for me, my brother just moved out. A couple of days before, I was about to switch room. I was drinking with some friends, and when I went home to sleep, I woke up at 3 a.m. and saw the figure. I was drunk, so I didn't think anything about it. But the day after, I woke up and was like, what the fuck? I moved room, and the first night my boyfriend decided to stay up, and I fell asleep quickly. I started to talk in my sleep, and my boyfriend always records me, as I do this a lot. Usually I plan things in my sleep, or I just say random things. But my boyfriend was terrified when he heard what I said. In the video, it's in Swedish, sorry, I say things like, "Why is he standing in the corner? Don't hurt me," and "Ow." You can hear that I'm scared by my tone of voice. Compared to the loud and obnoxious voice when I usually talk in my sleep, this is the latest ghost encounter. To put maybe a positive spin on it, once when I was at a party, a friend of mine pulled me aside. Her mum is a medium, and I think the gift was passed down to her. She asked if I wanted to know who was following me around. Of course I said yes. She said that there was a creepy and kind of uncomfortable presence, but she said it was a protective energy. I said I don't really know anybody that was like that who has died, but after talking to my mum, she said that my grandfather, on my dad's side, who passed in 2014, could be standoffish to young people. He passed away after having a stroke in hospital. Before he passed, I remember I held his hand when I told him how much I was going to miss him, when he tightened his grip on my hand. The same night after my mum had said it might be my grandpa, I had a dream about him. He looked healthy, like he'd never been sick a day in his life, and in the dream we were holding hands. That's my story. I think it might be something that's having a hard time moving on and doesn't know it's passed away, and that my grandpa is protecting me. Thank you for reading my story. I love you in your video, and they really help me when I feel down or need to calm my anxiety down. Have a great day or night. Love, Emma. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's good to know that my videos are useful in some way. It's a strange situation because it's like, do I want someone to be looking out for me if this is how it's going to make me feel, like slightly creeped out all the time. I personally would prefer they didn't show themselves to me. I'd rather be comfortable in bed. That was a great story. Thank you so much. Is this brush way too big to be doing this? Yes. But it's the only one I could be bothered to get. This has kind of turned into like a clown look, hasn't it? It's that clown story, subconsciously making me do clown makeup. I'm actually going to hollow out my face by shading in this whole area here. I wouldn't usually draw on my face like that, but this product's quite creamy and nice to do. And I'm hollowing out these areas to make me look a little bit more like dead, I guess. I'm going to leave my forehead. I just feel like vampires have big foreheads. So our next story is called The Ex-Husband's Remnants. It says, hello Robert, I'm new to makeup in 2020 and your videos have been incredibly helpful. Thanks for that. Thank you. That's my goal, so that's always nice to hear. My aunt told me this story right after it happened in the early 90s. On occasion, I make her tell it to me again. It gives me the chills every time. It happened with my aunt's now deceased friend called Carmela. She said Carmela used to tell her how she always heard footsteps on the stairs in the house when no one else was home. She'd go upstairs and doors or drawers to dressers would be open when no one else was there except her. But this story stands out as a chiller. I rang my aunt yesterday so I could write it down and take notes. I'll tell it in her first person as she told me. Both my aunt and Carmela believed in the power of prayer, but the neighbour in the story wasn't a religious woman at all. My friend Carmela was married to a man who turned into a real jerk. He was mean-spirited, nasty, and a cheater. He often hung out by himself in a room in their basement. Once her marriage suffered more, he ended up sleeping down there too. When they eventually separated, Carmela called me over to help her throw out some of his things and clear his stuff out of the house. When I went into his room downstairs, it was ice cold. I asked her, Carmela, don't you have heating down here? She answered they did, but the room was always cold. We proceeded to go through his miscellaneous things and throw out trash. He had tons of pornography and weird books. Carmela didn't want any of it in the house. She also found some of his old records. Some had satanic symbols on them, probably an 80s heavy metal band, and wanted those thrown out too. She said she just felt a lot of evil coming from anything he owned. We gathered up as much as we could and put in a large trash bin. After we talked a bit more, Carmela dragged it to the curb. I got in the car and went home. I lived just a few blocks away and got home around 10:30 p.m, so it was dark outside when I left. 20 minutes later, I get a phone call. It was Carmela. She was shaking, crying, and hysterical on the phone. I asked her what was wrong. She said her neighbour across the street was upstairs in her home and happened to look out the window. All the houses on the block were 2-story. Carmela's neighbour said, "Did you put something out by the curb? Someone's in your trash can outside." Carmela responded, "We're all inside, it's me and the girls." Carmela's 2 daughters were home. The neighbour said, "Look outside, someone's out there." Carmela ran up to her bedroom to look outside. She saw someone or something in a cloak-type covering near the trash, hovering around it. She had a dark feeling about it and called me. She said, "Barb, something is outside my house and I don't know what it is." She described a cloaked figure, so I started to pray with her on the phone. After about a minute, Carmela said, "Oh my God, it's moving." She told me the figure started running or darting from door to door in the neighborhood. It ran faster than any human was capable. It was almost as if the figure was trying to get in a house or was running away from something. I prayed more, and Carmela said it's just running back and forth across the street to everyone's door. She said it was zigzagging up the block, going to almost every house until it disappeared into the darkness. The neighbour, who wasn't religious, saw it all as well. I wonder what that could have been, and if it had any link to the husband, or maybe the husband had a few secrets keeping himself down there. That's amazing. Thank you for that story. And thank your aunt for telling you that story so you could send it to me. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Right, I'm going to stick on some lashes. All right, guys. So this is our finished vampy, kind of turned into a clown look. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me this week. There were some good stories, some good pictures. It was very chilling. So thank you so much. If you guys have a ghost story or a weird story or just something weird happened to you, it doesn't have to be paranormal. It could be like your dog No, don't send me dog ones because they make me cry. Anything that's happening, you can send them here to this email address. This is for ghost stories and your weird stories and your creepy stories only. Don't forget you can join me here every Monday for ghost stories like this video. Give this video a big thumbs up. Share it with your friends if you have friends that are into ghosts and makeup, which apparently isn't as niche as I thought it was. But yes, thank you so much, guys. I will see you very soon. I hope you're all looking after yourself and you have an amazing week ahead. I will see you Wednesday and Sunday. Yeah. Bye.